Their Air Force is gone, totally gone. That took the better part of about 3 hours. They no longer have radar. They don't have anti-aircraft equipment. They don't have anything. Their missiles are down 90%. Their drones are down 85%. We're blowing up the factories where they're made left and right. They don't have nuclear potential. And then after midnight hammer, and then we left, we figured that'll be the end of them for a while. But they started again. That's why we got to finish it, right? We don't want to go back every 2 years.
That's President Trump yesterday at a Kentucky rally as Operation Epic Fury enters now day 13. The president warning the U.S. must finish the job and avoid an endless war. Brand new video shows American forces destroying an Iranian aircraft. The regime is retaliating, however. They launched a cyber attack on U.S. medical tech company Stryker, which is headquartered in Michigan. It produces a range of medical equipment and technology. They are also trying to attack any tankers that travel through the strait. We are still waiting on details of the Pentagon's ask for the defense supplemental package, as House Speaker Mike Johnson has said yesterday, that this legislation is likely inevitable. Wisconsin Congressman Derek Van Orden confirmed my reporting yesterday on this program that the package could be upwards of $50 billion. Joining me with more on all of this is Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis. Senator, welcome back. Good to see you this morning. Thanks for being here.
Likewise, Maria.
And what are you expecting in terms of a supplemental defense package? How would you assess the war and what the U.S. and the Pentagon needs at this point to continue this fight and win it?
Well, I have confidence that those who are on the Armed Services Committee in the House and Senate and the Intelligence Committees, plus our leadership, are communicating with the Department of War, the Department of State, and the White House to try to pick a number that will get us through this war. It is being executed in such a quick manner that I think we're going to find that somewhere between $50 and $75 billion will probably do it. And I think that will be well received, certainly by Republicans. You know, during the war in Afghanistan, we were spending well over $100 billion a year on that slow drip effort that really seemed to have no end. This war has a well-articulated mission. We'll know when it's over, and so I think the funding will be smooth sailing.
You know, right now, Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz has meant that it's actually exporting more oil today than it was before the war. You've been working on digital assets legislation, and we know the race to win AI has also become a race on power. And now we've got prices higher across the board. Connect the dots for us in terms of what this conflict means for the price of electricity. I mean, President Trump was very clear with the AI players, the hyperscalers, saying, look, you want to build out these data centers, you need to take on that cost of electricity as well.
And they are, Maria. We're seeing data centers as they're clustered, creating their own source of power. In my state of Wyoming, it's natural gas, which is by far the cleanest burning hydrocarbon. And they'll build their own natural gas powered plants, and it will allow us to win the AI war with China. We're also working on nuclear energy because these modern nuclear facilities are getting permitted faster, even though we're not compromising on safety at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Yeah. So you're going to see these ramped up, these escalate in their efforts to make sure that our artificial intelligence work is not interfering with the consumer's price of electricity in their homes.
Yeah, very good. And we appreciate you being on all of this. Look, I want to move on to the digital assets legislation that you're working on. The American Bankers Association is now trying to lobby Congress to close any question about crypto platforms being able to pay a reward. And ensure that everyone is on the same page. Where does this stand? Is there an effort to reopen the Genius Act because the banks claim that there's this loophole that allows some of these companies to still pay a reward, even though it has been decided that there won't be a reward paid if a person or institution moves money onto crypto platforms versus banks' deposit accounts?
Yeah, Maria, this has evolved in a really interesting way. So you have the big banks who behind the scenes are building their own digital asset shops with their own proprietary products and back office functions. And then their public face is working against the digital asset companies. Then they have on their side the community banks, of which there are 4,000. And the community banks are very sympathetic characters here on Capitol Hill. Interestingly, the credit unions are very receptive towards the innovation and the opportunity to provide financial products in the digital space and on the blockchain. So we're seeing this different groups with different motives all taking the challenge on. I'll say this. Coinbase came to the table and made a compromise. They will not call it yield, but they will offer rewards. The banks got what they said they wanted. They didn't want these rewards characterized as a bank product like yield or APR. They got that concession, and yet they're still fighting this. I was so proud of Senator Also Brooks, who spoke to the American Bankers Association and said, not everybody's going to get absolutely everything they want. So if Senator Also Brooks' view becomes the view of the Senate Democrats, we're going to be able to move forward and mark this bill up.
Do you want to see further regulation on the crypto players in order to do that? I mean, for example, somebody might say, look, when I go to a crypto platform, I'm not seeing FDIC insured. I'm not seeing deposit insurance. I'm not seeing all the other regulations that come with being a bank, and yet the crypto players want to look like a bank. So yesterday, I guess, the FDIC was expected to propose excluding deposits made by issuers of payment stablecoins from the pass-through deposit insurance rule, meaning that a payment stablecoin issuer would only have the $250,000 of coverage rather than up to $250,000 per each holder of the stablecoin. What kind of changes might we expect in terms of policy with regard to regulation, Senator?
Well, interestingly, the banks, of course, can have fractional reserves, but under the law, payment coins have to have 100% hard asset-backed reserves. So it's really not necessary that FDIC insurance be at the same level for payment stablecoins as it is for fractionally reserved banking institutions. It's going to take a while for people to see the difference, but I think we'll find that we can integrate a very robust payment stablecoin system without the full insurance that goes with being FDIC insured.
When would you expect a markup of the Clarity Bill?
Well, now that we might have to consider war funding. We are embroiled in how to deal with the SAVE Act. That's the election citizenship bill. I'm hoping we'll get to mark up either right before the Easter break or right after, and hopefully have a product out of the Senate Banking Committee before the end of April. But the deeper it gets into the year, Maria, the more challenging it's going to be for us to get this across the finish line, which is why I'm encouraging my Democrat colleagues to get us their final product so we can move forward.
Now, what you just said about Coinbase changing the language in terms of what they're deeming a reward, does that mean that they would be able to pay out something if you're, quote unquote, in a membership program?
Yes. What the banks at least said they wanted initially was they didn't want the payouts, the rewards that Coinbase was paying to look like a bank product being paid on a balance. And Brian Armstrong and Coinbase conceded that point in negotiations that were coordinated at the White House between the banks and Coinbase. So Coinbase moved to the center considerably. What we didn't see was the banks taking a similar step forward and saying, okay, you're giving up on the yield issue. We'll concede the rewards issue.
I see.
And so,
okay.
Yeah.
And Senator, before you go, you mentioned the SAVE Act and everything else on the agenda here. Do you expect we will see a talking filibuster? I understand you don't have the votes in terms of getting the SAVE Act passed because the Democrats keep reiterating it's dead on arrival. Tell me about a potential talking filibuster. Is that a reality?
Well, we don't even have the votes on the Republican side of the aisle to do a talking filibuster. And there are procedural reasons for that. Although if my conference wants to do a talking filibuster, I'll do it. I'll stay here till the cows come home. But what we know is there can be amendments, and amendments reset the clock on the talking filibuster. So we could go on not only for weeks, but for months and chew up much of the rest of the calendar year and get nothing else done. And in the end, not get that done either. And that's the risk of the talking filibuster.
Well, President Trump said he's not going to sign anything else until it's on his desk. Do you envision it ever being on his desk?
You know, at this point, no. But I've seen John Thune pull rabbits out of his hat before, and I'm hoping there's a rabbit in his hat on this one.
Senator, it's great to have you this morning. We so appreciate all of your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, Cynthia Lummis joining us on Capitol Hill. We'll be right back with the NASA administrator. Stay with us.